This is Lair Media. To whom it concerns, welcome to the panel. Good evening, everybody, and welcome along to this edition of the panel. A new run of the panel show that we had, I suppose, it came to an end last year, at the end of last year, and here we are again. Welcome, Guy Jones.
Welcome, sir. Welcome, Pat. How are you?
And great to see you again. And welcome, John Lonergan.
Hi, Pat. Hi, Guy. How are you?
Now, this is and by the way, the information is at the bottom of the screen. You press the red button on the right-hand side to subscribe to our channel. This will be going up on all our platforms later on tonight, so you can tell all your friends about us. And we have an exciting few people, apart from yourselves as well, including yourselves, lined up over the next couple of weeks. We'll see how it will go. And we have a generic running or a generic type of program on the thing, you know. Guy is Lebanese, Guy Jones. He's living in Kilkenny. He's an honorary, he's more than an honorary Irishman. He's the founder of the Irish Lebanese Cultural Exchange. Is that right?
That's right, foundation, yeah.
And as we know, John, as well, there's a huge connection between Ireland and Lebanon through our defence forces, through the many missions they've participated in through the United Nations. So there is an Irish-Lebanese connection going way back. I suppose to the 1960s, Guy, is there?
Before 1958.
Go where?
Yeah, it was Ireland's first mission abroad with the UN, and it was Lebanon.
1958. I didn't realize that myself. Yeah, jeepers, that's probably that outside of the United States of America, that's the strongest link we have with any other country as a small nation ourselves. Yeah,
I'd say so. Anyway, we have a strong link with France, but France never stayed longer than 30 years. You've been in Lebanon continuously since 1978.
My goodness me! I was in the army myself in the early 70s, but I didn't get out to Lebanon. I left after 4 years. I left the army myself. But
where have you served, Pat?
Only in Collins Barracks and Cork, all border duty then, because it was the early 70s. Everyone was in border duty, and it was hairy enough there at times. I can tell you that much, because there was a lot of activity, so to speak, around the border that time. But my two friends got killed in the Lebanon, Tom Barrett and Derek Smallhorn. They were in the same battalion I was at. Tom Barrett, 28 Barrett, that was his number, 81, 95, 28. Tom Barrett, he was in the 4th Battalion in Cork.
Well, the good thing is there was justice served, I think, with regard to,
Well, there was. I mean, that's the nature of any peacekeeping force, anyway, that always in situations where there's potential for war, well, there are always the dangers there, as we know, you know. And that's not making an excuse for any, but that is just a fact of peacekeeping. But as we're on Lebanon, John, we'd just get Guy's perspective, because as we know, I interviewed Guy last year when that massive explosion, I know the people remember it, in Lebanon caused appalling destruction. But you were there now for the week, Guy, yourself. You flew into Beirut, obviously. Your mum lives in Lebanon.
Correct, yeah. Correct.
And what sort of sense did you get about the country when you flew in there, and yourself, you know? What did you expect? Or
my expectation was that, you know, there was this explosion. It was in August 2020.
Yeah.
And then there was COVID. So for quite a long period of time, I have not visited Lebanon. So when I visited next, I was kind of surprised to see how much of a recession and how much of a damage this explosion has done. It had a very negative impact on the country as all, you know, as an overall. But also it has challenged our judicial system, our investigations, the probing. They never wanted to probe this explosion as they did for the assassination of Rafiq Hariri, the prime minister who was killed in 2005. So it was an international probe. As a matter of fact, the Angarda Shikana was involved in the probing of the, in the search and investigation.
Yeah.
And then
why was that, Guy? If you don't mind me asking.
Sorry, where was that in Beirut again?
Why? How were the Gardaí involved in that?
Oh yeah, no, it was part of a United Nations request, and the request was honored by Angarda Shikana.
Oh
so,
yeah.
So at that time, it was them who actually reported that this assassination is an international issue, and therefore it was brought to international tribunal. So the Lebanese have this experience and never wanted that explosion in Beirut in 2020 to go the same route. But what it created, and this is what the other probe did not do, it created an internal rift between communities, between a huge political divide in the country. And it has challenged everything. It has challenged the economy. It has challenged the judicial system. It has challenged our laws. It has challenged everything. So the country is in very bad state at the moment, and we are hoping that maybe with an election of a new president, it means that we are opening a new page, maybe.
And that's going on at the moment, is it? Is it the election of a new president? Is it?
I know, but it's been, they had so many runs, calling the parliamentarians to meet up so they can elect, and it has not been successful so far. There is no one prominent enough or has a favorite, let's say, to actually push forward and get elected. So it's a bit of a stalemate, maybe.
Yeah. Maybe you could take two of our fellas, Martin and Brad, because they might do the job over there.
There is something, John, that I think the Irish troops have discovered it already. We kind of tend to say there is always an Irish way, and to be quite honest, the Irish way works because it bends corners, it makes people meet up, you diffuse situations, and it is an amazing thing. So let's not take it too lightly.
Now, you're listening to the panel here on LearMedia.tv. Tell all your friends about us and press the red button to subscribe to our channel. And you'll find this program along with all ours on our YouTube channel. Now, getting on just domestic matters for the moment. Of course, we have a housing crisis. I was looking across a few newspapers today. I must confess, I only bought one newspaper, but I looked at the rest of them in the shop. I thought I was entitled to do so when I was buying one of them. There was nobody in the shop, only myself at the time to sell it. But anyway, I just noticed there's a huge amount, there's quite a few people living in tents on the banks of the canal in Dublin. And in Tuscany in the Sunday World, in the front page of Sunday World. But I knew about it already myself anyway. But apart from that, we have a huge, I know you live in Kilkenny, Guy, but there's a huge shortage of housing accommodation everywhere. It's not just Dublin or Cork. Or even my own son probably will have to move in. He's rent in his house, and he won't mind me saying it, went from €650 in Shannon Town to €1,400. Now, obviously, I mean, I knew about the insane rents everywhere, but when it comes to your own doorstep, your eyes open wide. And I can tell you, lads, and you probably know this yourselves anyway, there is nothing, and I mean nothing you can do about it. Absolutely nothing, except give back the keys and become homeless if you have nowhere to stay.
That's there is, Pat.
Huh?
Pat, there is. But what's happened is that the successful governments and the will of the people at the top have suppressed people, right? I mean, I think we mentioned this before on the program. You know, where's the fighting Irish gone? Like we go to Lebanon, we go to Cyprus, we've gone everywhere back in countries. And yet here we are in our own country being, excuse the thing, raped and pillaged by our own governments, by scrupulous landlords, by everything that's going on, right? I mean, rent, the price of gas, electricity. I mean, I think I said this before, Pat. You know, when you look at your electricity bill or your gas bill,
Yeah.
you're paying three taxes before you pay for anything else.
Yeah.
You're paying a carbon tax, you're paying a standing
PS,
charge, and then
PSO.
you're paying the tax on all of the. So you're paying three taxes, and then they tax you on that again, and that's
VAT.
in every bill, and in everything that we do in our lives in this country. It's three times. You look at the price of. You just said the price of your son's house went from 600 to 1,400. That's practically three times what it was before. So everything in this country is three times up, and let the people get on with it. It's time people need, like I was talking to Guy earlier, and I got mad in 2008, 2009, as you know, Pat, and
Yeah.
got totally peed off over the property tax and the water charges. And as I said to you, what would you have been paying for? What would this country have been paying for water for the 2 years of lockdown if we hadn't fought back in 2009, 2010, 2011, and kept
Yeah.
fighting for 7 years? If we didn't do that, what would people have been doing? Washing their hands every 5 minutes during COVID. This was all pre-planned, and they're now doing it a different way. They're putting up, like, the companies, the electricity companies are making billions of profits, and nobody has the will to take them on. Nobody. We have young people that are sitting back, and as you said, Pat, your son is probably going to have to move back in with you, right?
Now,
How
I
many how
mean,
many other families are like that?
he's lucky that the kid, his two kids, and said, I don't want to get too personal, but they're teenagers, which I suppose they're young
Mm.
adults, which is softens the blow somewhat. You can imagine if you had small kids, small kids, 4, 5, 6 years old, schools and
Yeah, but Pat, the teenagers now have nothing to aim for because they have their parents. They see their parents struggling, right? And they
yeah,
have nothing to aim for. They don't want to buy a house. They can't buy a house. They now know that they're going to be living with granddad or mom and dad for the rest of their lives unless they scarper out of the country. And what a few! I mean, think about this. All of us, when we were growing up, you had two or three things in life: meet a nice woman, have a family, and have a home. A home, not a house, a home.
yeah,
Now they're taking that privilege away from your children, Guy, and my children, anybody that's living in this country. They've now taken that away. The home, not a house, not a building, the home. And that's what we all built our lives on coming up through the years, and our parents before us. I'm sorry if I go on over. I get
no,
very passionate about this.
no. I'm sure, Guy, the housing situation in Kilkenny is the same, where they're
It is.
probably
It is very, very same. I mean, if you look up today and you are looking for rent, let's say, there could be probably one facility or two, one apartment or two.
oh my,
So obviously, and there will be like 200, 300 contenders. So obviously, this offer and demands leading this market is very,
yeah,
very bad because somehow there should be kind of a cap on what you can do because you have to regulate it. You cannot actually just let it go. Plus, yes, John is right in many ways, particularly when it comes to government did not do enough to actually build houses, encourage the building of houses, to have enough accommodations for everybody. There is always a generation coming up that is looking for their own apartments or their own houses, and therefore the huge stock that was left back in 2008 at the collapse of the economy, there was a huge stock of apartments, of houses which were emptied and nobody wanted them, etc. while that stock was actually, filtered through and gone with, there was no encouragement to build, and yet life goes on. Even with economy, with good
Yeah,
economy or bad economy, life is going to go on, and therefore we are facing this. And actually, yes, I believe that the successive governments did not do enough.
that's true. Because just to finish with my son, and I know he won't mind it, because we went up to Clare County Council, the housing department, and
Mhm.
I must say in their favour, I know one of them well, but the other lady who I know to say they couldn't be. They're fantastic at their job. The officials, they get a lot of, and they were saying that their job is so difficult now, and she wasn't feeling sorry for herself. I won't mention her name. She said there's absolutely nothing available anywhere in the county, no matter what boreen you travel up, nothing available. I mean, she told us the truth, and I like that. I know it's miserable, I know it's not positive, but I like people to tell you the truth, not to say, uh, I'll let you know. I think just tell it as it is. And she said, believe it or not, now we don't have the same autonomy as we did before to allocate accommodation to people.
Correct.
There's so many. There's so many categories, and of course that's right too. Like small children and mothers, obviously, would be a category that would get a house before me if I'm a single man. That's fine too. But there should be a bit more equality though in the allocation. But anyway, that's the way it is, and the likelihood of anything, and there's very few being built, which is the crux of the matter, because you drive around, and Guy, you drive around a lot of the country. You drive around most places, you visit a lot of places, you get around. You don't see big, huge building sites anymore with houses.
Well, we know that when you're planning in an urban, let's say, circumstance, you have to look at what's coming up. You have to look at the services such as schools,
Yeah,
all these things. So
absolutely.
I am definitely sure that while these things are being parameters and they should be looking at them, I don't think that it is catching up. Plus, without actually dwelling on the subject, is that we did already have a shortage. We already had people sleeping roughly in on our streets, being in Dublin or in Cork, or even now in Kilkenny as well. But I'm just saying that the influx of people looking for housing as well is huge, and that has actually aggravated the situation we're in.
Well, we're
100%.
yes, John, and we're not here to make. There's no point in criticizing for criticizing's sake, but we can see the reality. I know it. John knows it. You know, Guy. Drive you around, walk you around. You can walk around any town. I was down visiting my dad in Mallow, and there's no building going on of any description. There might be a house here, a house there, but there's no grand housing estates like you saw in the 70s and the 80s, in the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s. This country, huge amount of housing building going on. That's what I'm talking about. So really, I don't really know what the answer is. We don't want to get too depressed about it. We hope that things cannot go any lower at the moment. But we'll go
But
back to
Pat, they
housing.
will.
Yeah,
Pat, they will. They will, because people are now getting their bills. The bills are now coming out, right? I got a gas bill for the last 2 months, and I was being very, very frugal in what we were doing, and it's astronomical.
Mm.
And I don't know if people have got their electricity bills yet, but it's going to be humongous, because I've noticed now that with the whatever electric company you're with, they're after delaying the bills, so they're obviously totting up and making everything bigger and bigger again to make it more profitable for themselves. Um, I normally send in my meter reading, and within 2 days I get my bill.
yeah.
It's now in over a week, and still haven't got the bill,
Mhm.
and I know it's going to be huge. And you know, I fear for the people who are pensioners living on their own,
Yeah.
right?
Hands up. But Well, I can tell you, as talking about the power bills, I can never understand why they just did not, and they can do it. The government can issue a diktat, put a cap on bills. Okay, they might be expensive, but if there's a cap on it, you know that your bill will be the very maximum will be whatever it will be. It'll be capped and cap on the profits.
Yeah,
Now,
but that's
I
grand.
met, but John, I met a local TD recently. He said, hey, Pat, did you get your €200? I said to him, what €200?
Yeah,
I said, I never got that. That went to the company that I'm
that's right.
dealing with, that's supplying me to keep their profits up. Is that what you mean? I said to him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah,
That's exactly it, Pat. So again, it comes back to the will. There's no will in this government in this country to say no, to stop this the pillaging of all our monies, right? I mean, the amount of people that are freezing in their homes.
yeah.
Like I visited somebody today who are who I thought were relatively well off, and I went into the house and it was like walking into a freezer, and they all walked around with coats on them, and I just it to me it went I just went, oh my God, if they're doing this, what way am I going to be
Mm,
living on a pension?
mm, mm.
You know, like I don't want to be
Right.
depressing, but it's the reality, unfortunately, in this country. This is the reality, Pat. I
We hope the next generation right behind us will improve a lot for everybody, you know. Not that we shouldn't be doing anything, but the panel is a show on theirmedia.tv. We'll come back to housing, there's no doubt. We'll go back to all the cost of living, there's no doubt about that, you know. And if you want to join in the show anytime, you can drop us an email at learmedia.tv. The panel at learmedia, info@learmedia.tv. That's just there on the bottom of the screen. Drop an email to us if you want to join in. We'll be here every Sunday night from 9 to 10. As long as we can keep the light on and the electricity on, we will be here every Sunday night from 9 p.m. to 10
that could be the
p.m.
problem, Pat.
Yeah, well, I put another 50p in the meter. We had an outage
I'll be
before we
using
did.
candles.
Do you know, Guy, I never heard you singing. Did you ever sing?
Yes, I did.
You did.
I played guitar at some stage in the past.
But the reason I ask you that, we were talking the other night, a few of us trying to cheer each other up. Oh, by the way, I recommend one thing. I know we're all over the place. We went to see Martha, myself, and Mary. We went to see the Banshees of Inisharan. Lads,
Yes.
I know, did you see it? Did you see it,
I
Guy?
did.
Not
I
yet.
did.
John, did you see it yet?
Not yet. No.
Oh, I'm telling you. It would warm your heart, really. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from. It would warm your heart, you know. But
Don't tell me anymore now.
I don't like you anymore. But you liked me yesterday. I just so normal. You'd see it in any pub in any corner. You know, it's just
yeah.
just genius, John. You'll love it. We're going to see it again next weekend. Anyway, we wish all the lads well.
Pat,
But-
I'd say this is gonna be a classic. Trust me, it will be an Irish classic.
It will, yeah.
I would say it would be a subject in the Leaving Cert. Now, quote me on this one.
Well, you know, all the leading actors were nominated for an Oscar, including the director, Martin McDonagh, and the film itself. So, really and truly, it's historic. And we had an Oscar film on Colleen Kuhn,
Oh yes.
nominated as well. The Quiet Girl, for people who may not know the blast. A superb film. And there you go. Anyway, oh yeah, we've got party piece. If you were at a party now and someone picked on you, which they probably wouldn't anyway, you're a lot more sophisticated than that. But if they did and they said, "Guy, what's your party piece?" or what could you do off the cuff? You know,
I'd grab a guitar and sing a song. You know,
excellent.
That would be the thing I would do. Yeah.
I know what John does. And have you the guitar there? No.
No, I'm sorry. Now you should have prepared me for this. I mean, like
I know. Next Sunday night, guys, he'll be making his debut on their media on the panel next Sunday night.
God,
And we
God
don't,
help
Look forward to that.
our spectators.
and I'm trying to learn the banjo with the last 10 years. Oh my goodness me. I was given a present of one, so I think I know 1.5 tunes at this stage. But anyway, let's change get on it. But John, I know John sang in one of the shows. So next Sunday night, we'll have prepared for our party piece. And whether it's a bit of poetry or a song or a guitar. And you'll never know who might pick it up online and say, this guy here, that guy with the glasses, lads,
Yeah,
he's talented. We'll see has he got an agent.
it's got to be down the alley.
Now, and unfortunately, I mean, we do from time to time see that the war in Ukraine has thrown up huge challenges for this country. We know that, and we know now there's a difference under the different conventions. People may understand we're obliged to take in the Ukrainian people because of the war in Ukraine, right? Under a different set of rules and regulations. That's not pertaining to what we call the normal flow of immigration and all of that. But now people, I think some of them were hard done by. People are protesting. I know in Mallow, myself in my own town, they're protesting during the week. They're not protesting. I don't want to make this clear. I know from the Mallow situation, they're not protesting at immigration, at the immigrants, or anything like that. They're protesting at the lack of discussion and information for their community. Because you can imagine some of the rural communities, like I know in Lisdoonvarna, the population of Lisdoonvarna a couple of years back doubled.
Yeah.
With no consultation. And it has consequences, you know, Guy and John, for facilities like your local GP, your local schools, as you said, placed in schools and shops and stuff like that, normal things. That's all. It's easy to throw out the race card at people. I think it's too easily done by the media, but people just want to know. Do you find that in Kilkenny or around the place, Guy? Have you noticed that, Guy, yourself?
So far, Pat, I don't see an issue as such, but I know of a few children unable to get into schools. So this means that our school system is already saturated.
Right.
So this is one area where
yeah.
But from another point of view, maybe there are different people who are coming from the Ukraine into Europe. There are people who are coming with PPS numbers.
All right.
Which means, in my opinion, we could use the talent, we could use the manpower, you could use the creativity. They are a different type. They're not the type who are coming in totally surrendered to the system, where they're, let's say, sucking out from the what the system is providing them with and lingering on and being the burden. You know, most of us, and I have been in Ireland now for 23 years, I have never met prejudice. Never. Okay. Why?
Yeah.
Because if anybody looks at me or somebody who is in that kind of category, they would say, they're here, they're working their way, they're paying their taxes, they're doing their duty, they are maybe active in their society.
Yeah.
You know, so there is no apprehension to their presence, to these people's presence, because they are part of the society and contributing to the welfare of everybody. But I am probably more prone to talk about maybe those who are coming in as a huge influx into Europe, and they're coming in from the back door of Europe.
Right.
And I'm taking it that some people are using this as a weapon against Europe.
Oh, I see.
Take, for instance, the open border that used to exist between Belarus and Poland.
Yeah.
Belarus allowed Syrian people to travel by airplanes to Belarus. And they were all going into Europe via Poland, to an extent where Poland had actually taken a strategy, a political strategy, to actually lock down the border completely, etc., etc. And you know what incidents, or what could happen, in circumstances, similar circumstances. This is a political weapon used by uh, people who are behind this to actually put more pressure on Europe. As a result, the mood in Europe right now, when you look at the elections in Italy, you look at the elections in Hungary, you look at the elections in Austria, you look at Denmark, you look at the Brexit. Brexit didn't just happen overnight. It happened because of the influx of, let's call it, foreigners, etc. So it pushes people to move from resentment into anything else that could go onto the the spectrum of racism, to you name it.
Yeah.
So we here in Ireland, we're probably blessed with the fact that we have been ourselves, as Irish men and Irish women, abroad, and we have experienced prejudices of different types and nature. We know what it is. So this is the reason why there is a discussion in Ireland, the pros and the cons with regard to that issue. I would love to hear, John, your input on this, because this is rising also in Ireland in a bit of a dramatic way too.
And John,
I have,
yeah,
uh, obviously, I have an idea of why it's all men that are coming in to Ireland. At the start, it was all women, just Ukrainians, and now it's all men from all different countries. And my own idea of this is that I remember Simon Coveney joining us up into this European army. And I believe that they're bringing all these men into this country, and they will be trained in arms to fight for the European army. It's the only explanation I can decipher from why it's all men. And they're all young men. From what I've seen in City West in Dublin, which is a huge hotel, and there was trouble there last week, and the same is happening down in Kilkenny and everywhere. It's all young men. Why? That is the question.
Yeah, and in Cork City, John, is there not fear now? I don't mean fear in the sense of afraid of people, but lack of consultation with communities and lack of information given to communities when they're moving in 200, 300, or 400 people into an area.
You see, I don't think it's been highlighted in Cork yet. It is going on. Obviously, there's people moving in. Whether we're better at accepting people coming in, I don't know. There has been very little resistance that I know of. Again, it's mostly up the country that we see the resistance in Cork. I mean, already, like I know a lot of people from different countries in Cork who've been here, as Guy said, here working and contributing to the society. And I don't think there has been a problem in Cork that way. The problem in Cork is, as in everywhere, is the housing situation.
And there is it's important distinction, Guy. You mentioned the very start of your piece there. It's an important distinction to point out that there are people, as you said, with PPS numbers, with particular skills from other countries, and they are not the people we are talking about. They are the people who are coming in to work like I did, like we all did ourselves. We had to immigrate out of this country in the 70s myself. We went to work. We went to get a job. We went to find meaningful work and make a contribution, and happy to do so. These are not, we're talking about a cohort of people who are taking advantage of the system. We'll always get it. But what I can't understand, one simple thing before we get onto another topic is, if I get on a plane in Shannon here in the morning and fly to the United States into Kennedy Airport, right? I will not leave. I will not be allowed leave that airport until everything about me is checked out and it's okay and it checks out.
Right.
Now, people flying in to Dublin Airport walk right through and into O'Connell Street in Dublin. That's it. Why don't we have a system? Well, we have a system. Why isn't it working?
Okay. I've emigrated to Canada back in 1976.
Wow.
And I am talking about my Canadian experience as an immigrant.
Yes.
And I had a choice as well, because when I left Lebanon, I went to Athens, and Athens, I applied for immigration to Canada. They accepted me, but at the same time, I could have actually applied for asylum in the USA.
All right, and you were in Athens at that stage, were you?
Yeah. And I said, I am not a refugee. I will not accept to be in an asylum. I am applying for a proper immigration, and I went to Canada. So my Canadian experience tells me that when you bring in people and put them in direct provision, and you put them in Mosney for 7, 8, 9 years, 11 years, there is something terribly wrong in the system.
There is.
Yeah,
okay.
100%.
Because you either accept them because they have either political asylum or economy asylum or whatever it is. Either you accept them or you show them the airplane and you say goodbye. This is one thing that we lack. We don't have the law to actually send somebody who absconds. Say, for instance, I applied to come in as a visitor to Ireland.
You did.
And let's say I'm just
yes, sorry, yeah. For
so,
example,
so you get in here, and you actually don't leave the country within the limit of your visa or of your stay.
Yeah,
there is no law that actually allows our forces to actually capture me, say, look, you are already in violation of the law, here's the airplane, go back home.
That's right. And there's a lot of there's some, not a lot of, I don't want to use the word a lot of because that means that everybody is doing it. What I mean is there's some abuse of the international student visas as well. I think it's widespread enough, anecdotally speaking, from people I speak to in the civil service, whereas myself, there is. But as you said, Guy, as I said, if I went to New York. Oh, by the way, did it take you long to get into Canada?
No, 45 days back then. But now now it might take me 2 years to apply, and go
to. After Canada, how'd you come here?
Oh, I went.
As the man said, I flew, but
after that, it was Saudi, it was Cape Town in South Africa, and after that.
Goodness. So hang on a second now. Go back there a minute. You went from John, do you hear this? You're a witness to this. You went from Athens to Canada to South Africa.
And then to Saudi, and then to UAE, and then after that, 1 year in France, and then here I am.
I think, John, we have the new James Bond. They're looking for Daniel Craig's replacement. We have the new James Bond here, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates as well. And my goodness,
what we have is a new Taoiseach who has been around the world and knows what it's about.
Yeah, exactly.
Rather than somebody who doesn't know a bloody thing about the country.
And Guy, would you ever consider standing for election?
I would be somebody who's very keen on Irish history. What makes Irishness being a very special characteristic, etc. I would know a lot, but I know also what it takes to be a politician in Ireland. What it does is you need to be in deep knowledge of hurling, which I have no idea what it is.
And you're living in Kilkenny.
Sorry.
That's all right.
If
It's
somebody
okay.
from Kilkenny is offended, I'm very sorry. And I think you need to know about farming, because farming in Ireland is a public concern, and I think you need really to actually look into that area too. Other than that, on the international level, I would be very, very comfortable. I mean,
what I meant to say, John and myself could be your agent. You should consider running for the European Parliament.
there you go, Pat. I already have your voice, John. We can sit down, talk about.
Yeah.
John and myself would do all the canvassing in Cork and Limerick anyway. We're fine there, you know. We'd have that covered.
There you go.
And the media, well, you have the use of the media all the time. So, John, when are the next European elections? I think about 2 years away. So there we go. No, but really, it's astonishing, John, to hear Guy's story about the Lebanon to Greece to Canada to South Africa to Saudi Arabia and then into Kilkenny. It's incredible. But
it's fantastic to hear somebody after traveling all that, and that's why I'm saying I threw that out. What you say jokingly, right? But I'm quite serious. You know, we need somebody running the country who knows about how it is to live in different parts of the world, who knows what hardship is. And I'm sure, Guy, you've seen the hardship. You've been back to Lebanon. You've seen what's after happening in your country.
True.
You know, we have people running our country who are most of the times our Taoiseach in this country are ex-school teachers who were teaching for probably 1 year and then went into politics. And that's who we have running our country for the last 100 years. I don't think there has been anybody else has been I think, and you're right, Guy, in one sense, you know, you need to have a little bit of, you need to have the farmers on your side.
Yeah.
Right? But that shouldn't be the way. I mean, Guy, you had your own company, you had your own business or whatever, right? If you were struggling in a part of your business, you'd hire somebody that knew exactly what to do. You wouldn't bring in a guy off the street and say, right, I want you to run the finances, and all he can do is put a bandage on a finger.
Yeah.
And that's what's wrong in this country. And it's all, oh, I know somebody, and they bring them in. And that's why our HSE is in disarray, because there's, I'm not even going to, but you get my point.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's seemingly also from an immigration point of view, you know, that there are lots of abuses there by those who have applied in one name, applied in another name, applied in a third name. They go and line up and get the money in three different personalities and characters.
Guy, I worked, sorry for cutting across you. I worked with a guy, I won't say where he's from, and he was banned for driving in Cork for being 10 times over the legal limit, and he got a 2-year ban. So I had to drive him up and down to work. This is my very last official job. And we were coming home one day, and I said to him, I have to stop myself now from copying his accent because it'll be a giveaway, right? I said to him, what are you doing tonight? And he said, oh, I'm going to the airport to collect my cousin. And I said, how are you going to get to the airport? Oh, I will drive. And I said, you're banned. He said, I have 3 licenses in different names. 3 Irish licenses in different names.
Yeah.
Like, that's one story. Another guy got into a taxi, exactly what you were saying, Guy. A guy got into a taxi in a part of Cork, Carrigaline in Cork, and hired a taxi for 4 or 5 stops. But the taxi driver, he just told the taxi driver, stop here. The taxi driver didn't realize what he was doing. He was going into post offices. But he got out of the cab inside in the city centre. And where he came from, that guy had to go back there again, so he was going to lose a bit of a fare. But somebody flagged him down, and when they got into the cab, they found a wallet. And I know the guy who was driving the taxi, and he opened the wallet in front of the woman and took out, and there was 7 social welfare cards in his pocket.
Yeah.
So what he was doing was going around to each post office collecting his
Collect.
dole.
Yeah.
Uh,
John,
that's-
would you believe that because I have dealt with a lots of issues with immigration, but I looked after the Lebanese community in Ireland for probably more than 13, 14 years, unofficially on behalf of the consulate in London. Immigration officers, they know all of that. Just that we need to empower them with laws, which means our TDs, they have to do the job, and they have to be right. No, honestly,
That's the problem.
they have to do the job. They have to bring the legislation that empowers the Gardaí to do their job. Okay, we know the situation. We know exactly what's happening. We know how they enter. We know how they lose the passport when they arrive at Dublin Airport. So they have a legitimate visa coming in. Once they reach the airport, they lose the passport. So they come in. Where's your passport? Sorry, I don't have a passport. I am an asylum seeker.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
listen, I have to step away a minute because my battery is going to go die. I just got to get charger. It won't be 1 minute. I can still hear you.
All right,
anyway,
now
okay?
we have another 10 minutes or so. You're watching the panel here with myself, Pat, Guy Jones, and John Lonergan. We're here every Sunday night from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. on the panel. info@theirmedia.tv if you want to participate in the show and make a comment and a suggestion for topics as well. Now, we're going to go along, I suppose. You mentioned there you like history, obviously the history of your own country. I've been at many events with yourself, Guy, and all the gang, and there is a huge tie up, apart from the army side with Lebanon as well, just historically speaking.
Correct.
And one of the subject matters we have down for discussion, if people had got a chance to look at it, John, is what historical figures do you admire? And a historical figure could be someone who was in an army, who was a politician, if there's anyone we admire, as to see cynically. He could be a sports person. I'm thinking recently myself of, it's fresh in my head, that's why I'm thinking of Pele. Now, Pele transcended sport, Pele himself. And, when you read about, there was a dictatorship, more or less, for nearly all his footballing career in Brazil, whilst he was on the sporting field and all of that, and he played in four World Cups or 5?
Yeah, 5.
4, 58, 62, 66, and 70, and he won 3 of them. Incredible. But he was an iconic figure and always had a serenity about him, I suppose, a calmness. I suppose that, I don't know, he'd be one anyway that would spring to mind that you could have your kids or grandkids, in my case, to look up to, like Pele. And I suppose, Guy, would you have someone from your own background that you'd, from time to time, hold up as a figure or a person to be aspire to be like?
Aspire to be like, it's you see, personalities are dictated by the circumstances they have been around.
Exactly.
If I was at the time of, let's say, the Mahatma Gandhi, if I lived at the times of Michael Collins,
yes,
if I lived at the times of the Prince of Lebanon, Fakhruddin, I probably would have I would have looked up to these personalities and said, yes. For today, applying it on today's world, I tell you only something that relates to Ireland. which means I'm talking about Collins. If I do, and if I may, having stopped a war that endured for 832 years in the way he did bravely, inspired the Arab uprising of 1918, inspired the rise against the British rule in India, inspired. All that is because it was believed that the eye cannot actually resist a knife. So it was proven wrong. It was proven that yes, you can. And I believe it's not just a national hero, but I believe an international one too.
Absolutely, John. And isn't it great that Guy must have been doing his research on you and I, because we're both Cockman, and Michael Collins, as we know, was a Cockman. Guy, flattery will get you everywhere. But John, I suppose you heard an awful lot about Michael Collins growing up anyway yourself, as I did, you know?
Well, you see, again, because we were in the army, well, my dad was in the army, it was all Fianna Fáil. So you were never told the Fine Gael side of things, right? So we were never really told. Everything was Eamon de Valera, right? Again, as I said previously, I was never interested in politics until 2008, 2009, when they decided to destroy our country. Anyway, if I had, I'm going to have a very strange person who I thought I look back on now and say he had some thing in history. It's Muhammad Ali, for the stance he made, for the changing of his name, for the refusal to go into war and to be put in prison. Now, whether he was put into a hellhole of a prison or not, I don't know. I haven't researched it or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But Muhammad Ali would be one that I would say, you know, that guy changed a lot of history, a lot of stuff for people that we didn't know about. And he made a lot of money, obviously, but, you know, and that's the person that and at the time when he was boxing, God, I detested him. I thought his way of boxing was, he was always cheating in my book, you know. I just, but as years go on, you look back and you say, my God, he must have, I mean, to take on the American government and refuse to go into the army at the height of his, and you could see why he done it, because he was fighting back, and that's what I like.
Yeah, he would be an inspiration. Obviously, he'd be recognized in any country in the world. His photograph, his picture, you know. And of course, he lost the best years of his career because of his stance on the war in Vietnam. He said, "They never did me any trouble. I'm not going to go out and kill those people." You know. Why should I? You know, that's what he. And you know, that was it. But he fought, as you know, he fought in Croke Park. Muhammad Ali, Cassius State. He fought in Croke Park, and he has Irish connections through his grandmother, I think. Now, obviously, they're Barrow and Clay, but then it's Shinskiller for another day. But they are figures that we can look up to. I suppose when people are alive, it's very difficult to pick out people, as you said, Guy and John. When people are alive today, it's when you remove a bit of time from them, you know, looking back, it takes a while, you know. It's like, I grew up in the era of Dr. Noel Brown. Dr. Noel Brown was an Irish politician, you know, and a wonderful book. I know it's in print still. You'll get it, Against the Tide is the book he wrote. He was responsible, really directly responsible, for almost eradicating TB in this country and instigating the mother and child scheme. What that means, give them, change the law for single mothers with children rather than marry. You know, the single mothers with children in the 50s and 60s in this country were a non-issue for people. So he was a pioneer in that field and was vilified, obviously, from all quarters, but a wonderful man, a wonderful human being. That's Dr. Noel Brown we're talking about. But I see that our time is almost up, lads. But what we will do is we'll have I think we'll be inundated with guests next week because Guy, tune up that guitar during the week and have at least 3 or 4 strings on it that we can hear, you know, and we can always mute it.
Yeah, thank you. That will be the thing to do.
John, you bring the bottle of stout and we'll have a sing-song next Sunday night. But lads, it's been a blast and it's been fantastic that you could time out to be with us tonight on the panel. And we'll hopefully be back again next Sunday night from 9 to 10 p.m. Tell all your friends about us. This program will be up on our YouTube channel now later on tonight. And as I said, from Guy Jones in Kilkenny of the Irish Lebanese Cultural Organization. What's it again?
Foundation.
The Irish Lebanese Cultural Foundation. And John Lonergan representing yourself, and you're well able to do it, John, I can tell you, down the car. Community activist. And, well, you can call me what you like. But until we meet again, lads, next Sunday night at 9 p.m., take care and have a good week. From this edition of the panel and myself, Guy and John, good evening and good luck, and thank you.
Good night and thank you. Good night.
This is Lair Media. To whom it concerns, welcome to the panel.